Welcome to another episode of Halftime Adjustments. It's your host, Eddie Arnell, my man, G. Witt.
Tighten up, baby.
Mr. J. Lou. What's going on, fellas?
Tighten up. What's going on, gents? What's going on?
Tighten up, man. We are literally weeks away from the start of the Titans 2022 football season. Yes, training camp. You know, yes, we are hoping that they make the final decision to let the fans come in and see a few of the practices.
Absolutely.
Because you might see some familiar faces there. So, guys, we were breaking down positions over the last show. We did the DBs and the receivers. This week, we're going to look at the tight ends, the linebackers, and also the interior line on both sides of the football. A lot to be said about this team in the trenches because, you know, the identity of the head coach they've taken on, and you've seen how J. Ralph has built this football team from the interior out, knowing they want to be strong up front and control the game. And how else do you control a football game and enforce your will is your defensive and offensive line.
Absolutely.
So along with that, we kind of looked at the tight end. Let's start with that guys. And you know, last season, you know, we thought Ferguson was going to be the man, was going to have the breakout season. He was poised to pick up from his 2020 season. And we just didn't see that, guys. And then, you know, Jeff Swain, we talked about him and his inability to block because he's always got his head down. And, you know, G. Witt, man, this tight end group from last year didn't produce a lot, only 600 and plus yards of receiving yards for three guys, basically, right? Pruitt, Swain, and Ferguson, and 8 touchdowns. And, you know, if you look at the addition we added this year with Austin Hooper, he did that himself at least twice in his career with the Falcons. So, G, let's talk about this tight end room from last season and what are the hopes going into 2022?
Well, we're hoping that it goes back up to where it used to be, man. With the additions they brought in with Chig and Austin Hooper, man, you're hoping that it gets back up to where it was before. Last year, Ferska found out the same thing that Drew Bennett found out when he went to the Rams.
Ooh, Drew Bennett.
It's easy to catch the balls when you're number 2, number 3. It's a little bit different when you're the number 1, supposed to be the quote-unquote number 1 tight end, and you're garnering all the attention. Mm-hmm. And you saw really, to his detriment, Ferska just couldn't complete the job, man. He had his worst statistical year since he's been here, even from coming in as a third option on receiving. It was really one of his worst ones. He really couldn't catch the ball. You already knew he couldn't block.
Right.
The best he could do was chip on some occasions, and his route running was really suspect as well. He couldn't get open. Mm-hmm. Man, it was just bad overall. Like you said with Jeff Swain, you know, he really is not what you call a receiving tight end. He's supposed to be more of a blocking tight end, but as we saw last year, he's so inconsistent with that. You know, some plays you see he may block pretty well, but for the most part, what you saw was him getting beat by, you know, a variety of linemen and linebackers, missing blocks, like you said, trying to block with his head down, and it just wasn't any good. The best one out of the group, in all honesty, was Michael Pruitt. But again, you're talking about somebody who's inconsistent in his route running, and also somewhat a little bit inconsistent in his blocking. But out of the 3, he actually performed the best, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to seeing this group really improve this year with the additions that they made. They kept Swain, and I half and half for me. You know, I understood why they kept him, but really I don't expect too much out of him. But if Hooper and Chig come to play, I think you'll see a vast improvement in that position.
Yeah, and you make some great points there, man. You know, Chig, if you really look at him, like his stats won't wow you, but he had I'm gonna say a career year his last season. Honorable mention Big Ten, 52 receptions, 447 yards. And J. Lou, but Austin Hooper, though, is the wild card, right? They bring him in for a reason. He can block. He can run routes. He's a tough guy. Of course, they didn't utilize him that much in Cleveland, but, you know, we saw him with the Falcons, man. He had some career seasons with Matt Ryan. And so, J. Lou, what is your viewpoint of this tight end group for the 2022? Surely they can be more productive, right?
Well, I mean, you know, never say never,
Right.
but surely they should be able to be more productive. I think, you know, Austin Hooper comes in with something to prove. Kind of got lost in the mix in Cleveland and that dysfunction that they had going on up there. He signed a big contract with them and then let go. So we got him at a bargaining price, but I think you got a talented athlete for what we paid for him.
Right.
You mentioned what the tight end room did last year, and Hooper's done it himself. If we can get that out of him, plus a little bit, then I think that we see this offense take leaps and bounds. We got to remember the last 2, if not 3, offensive coordinators for the Titans have come out of the tight end room.
That's true.
So this is a team.
True.
This is a team that loves the tight ends. And last year, I know everybody. Tannehill's gonna get all the blame because he's a quarterback, rightfully
Right.
so.
Right.
And the wide receiver is the sexy position. But last year's quality, lack thereof, quality of tight ends hurts the passing game more than anybody wants to say. So I think if we can get back to just a sniff of that production that we saw with Jonnu, then you can really see this offense take leaps and bounds. I mean, it opens it up. We probably ran top 5, 12 personnel in the league last year, 2 tight ends, and we really didn't. Nobody was afraid of our tight ends. You knew First wasn't gonna catch the ball. You knew Swain was gonna be on his back or swim blocking. I don't know what he was doing. And then like G Witt said, Mike Cole was probably the most consistent. But he had his inconsistencies. But against those 3, he was the better one until he had that gruesome injury. So you're hoping that Hooper, again, we're going to like to run twin sets, 2 tight ends. So you're hoping that this gives us that athlete that can attack the middle of the field, which is what this offense was missing last year. And let's just be honest, every quarterback going back to Mac 9 has always loved the tight end as their security blanket.
Absolutely.
So you've got to get Tannehill something, somebody that he can go to when he gets in a crunch instead of us throwing it to the wide receiver number 4 on 4th down, like we were good known to do. So I'm sorry, I can't let that one go.
I know, man. But you bring up a great point. The past 2 seasons for this team, on a crucial 3rd down, 4th down play, he goes to the 3rd, 4th receiver.
Yes.
Yeah.
And last year, arguably, the guy had 3. He was covered by 3 Bengals. I mean, arguably,
you got to wonder about that.
right. And so, if you look at, you bring up some good points about Austin Hooper, J. Lou, and you look at his stats. I mentioned earlier. In 2018 and 2019, he had a lot of targets. So Matt Ryan really was looking for him a lot. He ended up with 71 receptions in 18 and 75 in 19. So, he is a valuable weapon. And I think back to, you bring up Mac 9. I even go back to even here previously with Mariota. Mariota had Delaney Walker. And Delaney Walker he had a career year. One of those seasons. That's right, with Mariota, because Mariota had that was that safety blanket. He knew Delaney was going to make those tough catches across the middle. He knew that he could rely upon him to make those crucial catches. And so every quarterback, like you said, J. Lou, they need that friend in that tight end that can make those plays.
And I'll be honest with you, I got to see Hooper live in person when he was down in Atlanta, man, and I thought he was excellent. I thought he was phenomenal, really. Especially if you pair him in there with Jeff Swain. He definitely gives you somebody that can easily run that seam route down the middle or across the middle and give you an opening to where you, like you said, Tannehill will have his security blanket. He won't be looking at the third level receiver covered by 3 people. He'll at least look for that tight end coming across the middle, because that was the weakness that we had last year. We couldn't get a tight end to get open across the middle. And once Michael Pruitt went down, that was it. We had nobody. So that's the thing I think we have to look at and see. Hopefully, like you said, J. Lou, if he can get back to half of those numbers he got when he was in Atlanta, it's a definitely plus win for us, because that means he's going to double the output of 3 tight ends from last season.
Man, and that, that's a lot to be said, G. Witt, man. when your best or your number 1 receiver threat is Michael Pruitt, right? And nothing against Michael. He was a great addition to this team. He did a lot of good things for this football team, particularly in his run blocking. And he was tough as well. But when you got one guy that you picked up that has outproduced 3 guys, in his career in just 2 seasons, right? In one season, really. And so that says a lot about his athletic ability and what he can potentially bring to this offense. And so the scary part of this is that after Hooper, Swain, and Chig, you got Tommy Hudson, and that's it. And so you hope that Hooper and Swain and Chig all stay healthy. I really do think Chig will be the number 2 guy. You know, I mentioned we talked yesterday about 1A and 1B. I'm thinking he'll be a 1B type guy. You know, he's really athletic, ran a 4.5 for his 40 time. So he's got wheels, and he actually ran the ball some in college. And so, you know, we'll see some of those things, we hope, out of Downey. You know, so we'll see what he does. But guys, as we move on to the show, so let's look over on the defensive side of the ball and talk about the LBs, because as we talked yesterday, this, in my opinion, was probably the most improved next to the secondary on this football team. And you know, you consider what these linebackers did in 2020 and how, you know, Jayon Brown and Rashad Evans, they both took a step back. And we wondered if they could get that play back in this previous season, you know, and Jayon Brown played pretty decent for the most part. You know, he had his ups and downs. He had some injuries he was dealing with. Rashad Evans, you know, he just never fit in, right? Once they brought in Zach Cunningham, his playing time diminished greatly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I couldn't think about the coach yesterday, but Jim Haslett was the coach.
Jim Haslett. Yeah.
I'm on it today. And so, you know, a lot to be said about that, man. If your linebackers were not producing and you get rid of the coach, so apparently they thought the coaching wasn't up to par, up to the level of what they want, of excellence out of their linebacker crew. And so, Jay Lewis, we look at these linebackers, man, particularly inside ones first. You know, David Long, Zach Cunningham, not real big guys, but ball hawks, if you will. You know, Zach Cunningham, one of the leading tackles in the NFL every year, top 5. And, you know, just the short time that he played with the Texans and with the Titans, as we talked yesterday, 93 tackles. And so let's talk about these inside linebackers, Jay Lou. We got Monty Rice come back off an injury. And so we got a potential to have a good young core of linebackers on this football team.
Yeah, that's the key word right there, young, because they are young, and we got speed. You know, speed. we talked about Evans. After the first 2 years, you know, you saw him start to dwindle down. But one thing that we replaced him with Zach Cunningham is speed, man. And we saw that tackling machines between Cunningham and Long. The one thing you question is durability. Right. And again, with, you know, it's more so with David Long than Cunningham. I mean, Cunningham hasn't had a case of injuries throughout his career, but we've seen David Long because of how he plays football. Because I don't want him to change that. Because of how he plays football, you know, he's subject to some injuries. But man, it's going to be amazing to see what they can do. You know, you just mentioned it. Zach Cunningham had 90-something tackles, and we picked him up like week 8, 9, somewhere in that time frame. He's getting the whole offseason in the defense now.
Yeah.
And then you got Long, who's got a whole off season. Let's not forget, last year he was basically second string and worked his way into that starting position. I mean, they did a lot of rotation, but you're the man now. So those two are solidified as being the starters come September 11th. So how do they look in the offseason? How do they perform much better? What's the communication like from there? I mean, you know, communication is the word this defense brought up since 2020. And I think last year we saw it change. So now we saw it change from the back end, because when we talked about cornerbacks a couple of shows ago, we saw it change back there. Now, if you get it in that front 7 and get them to really be in sync, it can be scary times down there in Nissan Stadium for that defense. But the linebacker crew, man, again, we got to stay healthy, but I just like what J-Rob has done with this team. They went all in, and I think they realized 2 years ago they had a defense that had some talent but was slow. And now in the last 2 years, you've seen we remake the entire defense with a lot of speed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a bunch of speed. And, you know, you mentioned Zach Cunningham, his tackle, 164 tackles in 2020. And, you know, in 10 games with the Texans, of course, he only played 4 games with the Titans. So, 93 tackles, that's pretty impressive. And, but G. Whitman, you know, he brings a lot to the table. He's one of the guys, him and David Long, that you don't have to take off the field on third down. But, you know, you got to be excited about this linebacker core.
Well, as I was saying yesterday, I'm trying to contain myself with this defense because it's, you know, being a defensive guy and been dying to see speed on the defensive side of the ball, man. You see David Long Jr. and Zach Cunningham, man. You guys who trust their eyes, who make the read, and they go for the ball. So that's what you really like about him. David Long, like you said, J. Lou, his issue has always been he's had a lot of soft tissue injuries and everything. So you're hoping that gets cleared up this year for the whole team. But I agree with you. We talked about it yesterday, a couple of years ago. What was it? Kevin Byard was the leading tackler on this team.
Yes.
And you definitely don't want that. You want your linebackers being your leading tackler. So I think with between Zach Cunningham and David Long Jr., man, that's what we're going to see. David Long Jr. really started to show his worth his rookie season. You saw it in the playoffs and everything. He actually made some great plays during that time. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this duo is going to do, because again, like you said, Eddie, they don't have to come out on third down. Neither one of them do, really. So, it gives you a lot of options with that defense where you don't have to just worry about giving up running plays. You got linebackers in there who can cover running backs out the backfield, who can also cover the run as well and make sure all those things get done. Rashad Evans, man, I think what we saw was that year 2, he hit his ceiling and just never got above it. And you saw the difference when Zach Cunningham got in there. All of a sudden now you got a defense that's flying around the ball. And I think once him and David Long Jr. get more time together during practices and everything in training camp, I think you're going to see the communication between those two. It's going to be similar to what we have at the safety position with Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker. You're just going to see them swap out, where it's going to add a lot of confusion to a lot of offensive linemen, man, because they're not going to know who's coming or who's staying back or whatever the case may be. So I'm really looking forward to that. The only thing that really concerns me, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is depth. Monty Rice, how healthy is he going to be coming back? Has he added any size to his frame? Because that was one of the issues I thought about him last year, that he had a problem with his size and just wasn't, I don't think it was NFL size, let me put it like that. And I thought he had a hard time with some of his tackles and everything. But I'm interested to see who all these other guys who they brought in, how they're going to do and everything. So, but yeah, the starting lineup, man, yeah, it's one of those where I can't wait for training camp, because I got to see how these one-on-one drills, man. I can't wait to see them.
Yeah, and Bud. I mean, we hadn't even talked about Bud yet. I was about to talk about him. But anyway, so Monty Rice, yeah, you're right. There wasn't a lot of talk about him doing the OTAs, and kind of wonder, where he is in his injury, as far as his progress and returning back to the practice field. And like we said, it's a few days away, a couple weeks away from camp, and so we'll see real quick. But since we're talking about Bud Dupree and the outside linebacker, so Harold Landry, Bud Dupree, one of the could be one of the best duos in the league this year. Of course, Bud's coming off a season that he had an ACL injury. He came back later on from that, and then really didn't hit his stride really to about the playoffs. Harold Landry, of course, he had a career season, 12 sacks, earned his money, got his payday, 5 years, $87.5 million. And you add to that Rashad Weaver, who got hurt in the preseason, and so we really didn't see him blossom into what he flashed against the Falcons early on in the preseason, and things he was able to do with some of the bull rush moves. We all agree, though, he's going to have to learn some more moves going into year 2 because he can't go in there being a one-trick pony, because he'll be stalemated at the line of scrimmage, and then a denier at depth. And so, G. Whit, man, these outside linebackers to pair with Long and Cunningham, that really gives us I'm gonna say a fearsome foursome, if you will, at linebacker.
Hey, look, I agree with you. Again, like Bud Cunningham, as far as I'm concerned, man, he to me, he proved his worth last year. You don't measure the worth in sack numbers. You measure the worth and influence as far as moving the quarterback in the pocket and everything, because that's one thing when he did play, even when he wasn't 100% healthy, that's one of the things you saw out of him, how he influenced the quarterback to move up, move around, and it also led to more sacks. And I think that's what people tend to forget about it. That's what he did in Pittsburgh. And that's why TJ Watt was so effective, because Bud Dupree was beating his man, making the quarterback move, and he's running right into TJ Watt. Now, and I'm not taking anything from TJ Watt, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying that Bud Dupree's influence is
that's
huge.
True. Yeah, that's
huge.
facts. Yeah. That's facts.
And and I'm looking at Harold Landry. Harold Landry's been consistent since he's gotten here. I thought what they did last year in training camp was a good thing. They wouldn't allow him to use his favorite move in the entirety of training camp because he had to work on some more moves, and Rashad Weaver's going to do the same thing. We saw him flash in that first preseason game, but you saw in the next one, he got stalemated.
That's right.
But you saw the potential there. Even in the games where he got stalemated, you saw him make some plays. So I'm interested to see how he's going to do with a full offseason, even though he's been injured, how he's going to come back and how he's going to play. And the depth we got, I thought Adeniyi did a good job in spot rotation last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he improves, even though he's mainly a special teamer. But like I said, like I said at the beginning, I'm trying to hold my peace on this defense, man, because you look at this defense, man. You look at the way they finished last year. If they can come back this year, continuing in that mode, you're talking about something really special on the field, man. Really special on the field, especially out of this linebacking crew, because you got speed at every position. And granted, we always say it. Harold Landry is not a cover guy, but Harold Landry not only rushes the passer well, but he plays the run well.
That's right.
I wasn't going to the coverage, but he plays the run well, which is what you need out of pass rushers because Bud Dupree does the same thing. So again, that just solidifies your defense, man. And I think it's going to help those young guys coming up behind them play even more effective because they're going to see it in their leadership when they play on the field.
Well, you weren't going to have to say nothing about the coverage because I know Jay Lou's going to say something about Harold. Because he always does. He always brings it up. And, we all agree that, Shane Bowen, it's fine to mix up the coverages and do little fun games up front, but, just not with him. Just not with him and Bud.
I already see it on September 11th, the second down play. He's going to drop in coverage, and I'm just going to scream at the coach's box. It makes no sense. But, I agree with what G-Wit said. He took my thunder at the end of what he was saying. We know they can pass rush, but both of these outside linebackers do a phenomenal job against the run.
Yes,
and I think that goes a question, and that don't get a lot of play. And one thing you like about both of them, especially when we saw Bud, and if you go back and look at that Bengals game and really just dissect it from the defensive side standpoint, with Bud coming into form and being healthy this year, and Landry's got a name now, where I think that the NFL league is giving him respect as a pass rusher, you can't double team.
No.
So if you look at it, you literally taking 5 offensive linemen against our 4. You got the center who's helping on which one, and it's just beat your man up. And I think that in itself, if this team can find a way to get after the quarterback with 4 and drop 7, about 65 to 70% of the time with the quarterbacks we have to play, then you got to like those chances. Because if you're not bringing an extra man to blitz, think about it. We created the blueprint against Patrick Mahomes. We've done pretty good against Pat Mahomes. Let's just be honest. Outside of the AFC Championship game, they got us. We've done pretty good making him look silly. And what we've done is basically rush the 4 and drop back in coverage and just clog up them pass lanes. So that's the one thing I'm excited about, seeing a healthy Bud and a healthy Harold Landry is. I think you're going to have an opportunity for them to have a lot of one-on-ones with tackles, or you're going to see teams keeping the tight end, similar to what we were doing last year, keeping the tight end out there just to keep him in the block, and really slowing up the wide receivers progression. So, but the outside linebackers, I'm curious to see Weaver. Again, I agree. I think all camp he's got to learn some more moves, but I think we're in a position there with outside linebacker where he can continue to develop that as the season goes on. Because right now we just need you to come in and spell these guys. And again, it was funny. I was looking at some information they had on Bud Dupree coming off injuries and playing a lot of snaps. Him and Harold Landry have played like 80-something% of the snaps, even going back to Bud's days in Pittsburgh. And we know Landry never comes off the field. So you would like to see that change a little bit where we can get them rotated out because it just have them firing all cylinders as we get to the end of the year. So I definitely think Weaver and Adeniyi are going to be great to be back up. Just think about Adeniyi for a second. Go back to week 2 last year.
That's right, Seattle. That's right.
That should have been a safety that ended the game.
Ball game.
It was supposed to be a safety.
It was supposed to be a safety. And again, this is a special teamer who was thrown into play. So, I'm glad to see him come back and the Titans get them. And again, this just goes So when you got these guys that can get the experience, get real life experience doing play, and they played well, that just can carry over for the year. But this outside linebacker crew, to G Witt's point, it's scary times. I mean, it's just to throw a number out there, 55. We went from 19 sacks to 42. 55 is the franchise record. I feel like that front four knows that, and they coming for it.
So yeah, I couldn't wait to get this out. But so think about it. So you talk about Pat Mahomes and what they did at Kansas City. So let's remember what Kansas City did last offseason. They addressed the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They built the offensive line up.
Yeah.
And we beat him up.
Yeah.
We beat
badly. I believe they only had 3 points that game, if I'm not mistaken.
They did.
Just 3.
And so, I mean, to your point, though, these guys, they get after the quarterback. They set the edge on the run. That's one thing we saw this defense do a better job at last season, was setting the edge against the run game. You know, because the previous season, you know, the running game was horrible. It was just horrible. Let's just put it out there. It was horrible. This defense was horrible against the run. You know, and a few adjustments, a few new faces, and they're number 2 in the NFL in rushing, only giving up 84 yards a game, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it's a lot to be said there. Again, the depth of the interior guys is the biggest concern. I think, you know, we're pretty good at outside with Weaver and Adeniyi. And, you know, Weaver, he's a big guy himself, 6'4", 260. And, you know, big and strong. You know, we saw his power some last season, even though it was limited time. And, you know, you just hope that he comes back and provides that depth that we're going to need. And so, you know, one thing we mentioned yesterday is that, you know, this defense has a lot of interchangeable parts. So now, if you do have to take out Long or Cunningham, you can put a Monty Hooker up in there in the box and let him play a little linebacker and play, you know, and bring another safety in with Theo Jackson if he tends to be that guy. Elijah Molden, you know, and play him back, because I think Elijah can play some safety as well. And so there's a lot of tools in the toolbox for Shane Bowen and the defensive coaches to work with. And so, since we're on defense, and I just love this next position the most, is that let's just talk about that front, that defensive line. And, you know, and you say 55 sacks, J. Lou, I think it's an achievable goal, especially since, you know, as I said last year, you couldn't double team Jeffrey Simmons. Why? Because Danico was coming. And you saw Danico had 8.5 sacks last season. Jeffrey Simmons had his 8.5 sacks last season. And so, you know, with him and Pop-Tart in the middle, you know, those 3 guys up front are a handful to deal with. And now you add in a healthy Bud Dupree that's had a full offseason. You got Harold Landry coming back. The depth of the defensive line, 2 guys, I don't know if you've really paid attention to it. There's a lot of depth there with Naquan Jones. He played well. Murchison is a good rotational guy they can put in. Deshaun Hand, he's another name to look out for. But Jaden Peavy, the undrafted free agent, look out for that name too. I think he makes his football team, and we'll see him providing depth. But J. Lou, man, let's talk about this defensive front. Of course, you know, you got to start off talking about Big Jeffrey anchoring the front line.
I mean, as G. Witt likes to call him, the slimmest 305 pounds.
He's going to be the slimmest 295.
295, yeah. He said he coming in at 295.
It's scary.
I mean, it's scary times, man. I think here in 2 weeks you might hear something from a contract standpoint with him. But you like to hear what you heard from him in the offseason, where he's all about ball. You know, he's hired a team around him to handle the contract. He said he'll be here for training camp. He's on a mission because he's got a sour taste in his mouth, just like the rest of his defense, of how last season ended. And I think they were upset. You know, 11 sacks and you lose a game, that don't happen on any level of football.
None.
And then I think they was just starting to hit their stride. So this offseason has been nothing but, you know, how do we get better and prepare? All you heard him mentioning was got to get turnovers. But you know, you were on the I forgot his name. You got Danico. You was on the Danico train from last May. Like you called it. Yes, as soon as we signed it, you called it, and that's the greatest gift the Colts have gave us. Because I mean, he's on a mission. You pair him, and I just like it because he can move anywhere on the front. You know, and that's the unique thing about our front. Just to go our front 4. you might see Bud Dupree line up on the inside because they can interchange, and it just keeps it. Schwartz has his hands on that because he loves just having those front four like that. But you talk about this is the position, the defensive line that I feel like we're going to have some suspects hit the practice squad that we're gonna lose, and they're gonna be good talent. Because it's too much when you start to look at the depth. And we have the depth there because you can rotate out and you don't miss a beat. My guy Pop-Tart until he got hurt. You never missed a beat when Pop-Tart was in there. Big Merch. I mean, I think Murchison is the outsider because you forget about him, but he does a phenomenal job in there. And then little Daquan Jones. I mean, Daquan's little brother. He came in and didn't miss a beat from Daquan. So the depth there, the one thing you want to see this defensive line that I want to see them work on this year is we've got to switch up the fake out spin moves, swim moves, the stunts. I mean, it was to the point where we was able to tell what stunt was coming on TV. So I think you mix that up a little bit because, again, as we just stated with the outside linebacker group, you can't double team because your center is going to help on Big Jeff every day, all day long. So that frees up Danico. So again, this front four, the easiest way to beat up a quarterback, push the pocket right into his face. And how many times did we see Big Jeff putting guards on skates last year? I mean, just skates. So this defensive line gives you something as a Titan fan to be excited about because I mean and again I like it from a depth standpoint because you can afford to give Danico and Big Jeff a series off and really not miss that much of a beat.
Right.
And you like here's where the brass, the front office of the Titans make their hay. And so T.R. Tart, undrafted free agent.
Yep.
Yes.
Man, and balling. Naquan Jones.
Another
one. Free agent. And so I mean, bringing in Danico. And so the reason why I was so big on him, man, because I saw what he did. We played the Colts. Yeah. He was always a problem. When we played against the Colts. He was really the game wrecker. It seemed like. And so we can't say enough about those guys, but G-Wit, I know you over there salivating, ready to go. So go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. This is the reason why I'm trying to contain myself. Because again, what I saw from that defensive front last year, I'm gonna put it like this. This is probably I'm gonna say this is the best defensive front we've had since 2008. And you think about that defensive front, that was Albert Hainsworth, James Jones, Vanden Bosch, Hurst was on that. And you look at it, and when they line up, you're like, who you gonna block? It's the same way with this one. Mm-hmm. You're right. They're gonna try to double team Jeffrey, but that's gonna leave them Autry open. They're gonna try to double team Autry, is gonna leave Jeff open or T.R. Tart open. So you gotta pick your poison. And then talking about a healthy Bud Dupree and a healthy Harold Landry coming from the outside. It's scary. Mm-hmm. It's scary. And this is the thing I love about it. I think, like you said, I think Jim Schwartz, I think he's got his hand in on it as far as creating pressure. You saw that the previous year we only had 19 sacks. We had 11 in one game this year. Mm-hmm. Even though 2 of them didn't count. You had 11 in one game. Come on, man. And that mainly, the defensive line was just eating. It's bad when the offensive lineman who won is trying to dog out our defensive lineman on Twitter.
Yes.
Oh my Lord.
It's bad.
Come on, Spain. Come on, Spain.
Come on now. You know it's bad. Like I said, we saw it last year. Again, if you're going for short yardage against that defensive line, it's hard, man. Jeffrey Simmons doesn't give up anything, man. Mm-hmm. He really doesn't. And again, Josh Allen found out. He got stonewalled. Everybody said he slipped. No, he didn't slip.
No,
he ran into a brick wall. But this is the thing about it. Like I said, Murchison's probably going to be one of the odd men out. Because you got Deshaun Hand back. They brought in him and everything. And I have to see this DeMarcus Walker. I don't know much about him that they brought in from Houston.
Right.
I know the media's been
all over. Yes.
But I have to see what he's got. Don't get me wrong. He's in the NFL, so I know he's pretty good, but I got to see because Houston really didn't show me much.
Right.
I don't know if he's a good run stopper or good against the pass or whatever, but the media's been talking him up. So I'm anxious to see what he's going to be like. But I will say this: all the guys they bring it back from last year, Simmons, Pop Tart, Danico Autry, Naquan Jones, Laurel Murchison. Yeah, I'm waiting to see those guys, man, because we know what we have with them. And you're talking about a defense, like I said yesterday, you got an opportunity for this defense to be the number one defense in the league.
Yeah,
you got an opportunity for that. With that front seven that we have, you have an opportunity for them to be the number one defense in the league, and that hasn't happened since 2000.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to contain myself on this, but yeah. Don't get me started on this defensive line.
Right. And we know it's early. We know the proof is not until they put the pads on, but the potential is there. You look at the totals last year. You had 3 guys with at least 8 sacks. That's not real common in an NFL a lot of the times, right? You usually have a guy or two that really brings home all the sacks, and so you had 3 guys. With Jeffrey 8.5, Danico at 9, and Harold Andrew at 12, that really brought the pressure. And then those guys are also double digits in tackles for loss. So that tells me they're in the backfield. They're living in the backfield constantly. Right. And then you add a Pop-Tart, which so famous and named by J. Lou in there, and you got a tough deal to have to go against for 60 minutes of a football game for an offensive line, any offensive line at that. Just ask any of them that played us how much of a problem it is to play against this 3-4 defense. And like you said, man, this defense is young. Danico's the elder guy on this defense, if you will, at 31. And then Byard's the next one. So these guys are going to be around for a while. If they can keep the contracts and keep paying them. And so you got a potential to have something good here going forward the next 2 or 3 seasons out of this Titans defense. And so, like I said, a lot to be said there, a lot of excitement on that side of the football. Just got to be able to put it together. Yes. And I think if we don't see the rash of injuries that we saw last year, I do agree with you, G, with this defense has the potential to be the best or one of the best in the league 2022, especially in a league where they really emphasize offense.
Yeah,
you really, we all agree that the rules favor the offense in this day of time, and so much to be said there. But really, really excited about this. So let's look at this offensive line, because if anything, this is another position group that's So we all agreed yesterday that. There's hope for Dylan Rendez, because you go back to that 49ers game against Nick Bosa, and he pretty much held his own for the most part. Yeah, we know they kept swaying in a couple times to help Chip, but when he had one-on-ones, matter of fact, he did such a good job. In the second half, they swapped Bosa to the other side, and put him up against Quisenberry. And so, G. Witt, man, this offensive line. Outside of Taylor Lewan, Ben Jones, and Nate Davis, you still got, a toss-up. We all think Aaron Brewer would be a left guard. Right tackle, Rendez, he's probably earned it. We'll see. But let's talk about this offensive line, G. Witt. And do we stay with this group, or do you think we'll add another free agent in this coming up few weeks leading up to the training camp?
Well, my whole thing is this, man. First, let me answer that last question. I think they're just going to stay with the group. Mm-hmm. I think that what they're looking for more than anything else is continuity with the offensive line. So I don't see them going out and trying to find a free agent unless everybody just flops. The one good thing we have about this offensive line, I'm just going to put this out front, they get to go against our defense every day in practice. True. That's the one benefit we have with this offensive line, because they're going to have to grow up, and they got to grow up quickly. Nate Davis is coming in. He's lost a little weight. He's playing a little slimmer, but I think he's going to be fine. But Aaron Brewer is to me really going to be the question mark. We know he's good against in rushing pass blocking, run blocking, but his pass blocking is what's really scary about him. So you're going to have to wait and see about that. Rendez is the same thing. Based on what you have, in all honesty, we have a solid run blocking line. The problem you have is in pass protection. Mm-hmm. Can Taylor Lewan stay healthy for the whole season? or does any of these rookies they drafted come up? Nicholas Petit-Frere, does he come out and actually play well and surprise a few people and everything? You just don't know. Jamarco Jones, you don't know what he's going to bring. But the one thing they did do this year, I think that's really good. They are creating competition on that offensive line, with the exception, like you said, those three: Nate Davis, Ben Jones, and Taylor Lewan. It's open season, and it's open season for who's going to be the first backup at tackle or center and anything like that. So they created a lot of good competition in drafting and free agents and undrafted free agents. I think it's going to be interesting to see. But like I said, the best thing you can say about this offensive line is that when they put the pass on, they're going 11 on 11. They're going against what is probably going to be one of the best defensive fronts in football this season.
Right. So, J. Lou, man, let me hear about this offensive line, man, because again, there's still. I think Nicholas Petit-Frere. I think he's going to be a name that we're going to hear a lot in the upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean, the connections there with Ohio State and Vrabel. So I think that plays something. Same with Jamarco Jones, Vrabel. Those are Vrabel type players.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, I'm hoping that, and Vrabel is never going to announce it because that's just
right.
He's Belichick 2.0.
Right.
But I think from just kind of looking and watching, we should know the starting five by week 2 of the preseason. You've got to. Because that way they can start building that continuity. And G. Witt mentioned that, the thing about training camp that go against our D-line, we also got 2 joint practices against 2 other teams. And that Buccaneers defensive line can be something that nothing to mess with as well. So, those are going to be some great battles because they're going to have to grow up quickly. But I agree. I think Petit-Frere is somebody that we could see. I keep going back and forth because I think Dylan to be right tackle, but then I can see them. I think the wild card's going to be for the left guard spot because I give Dylan a little bit there. I think it's going to boil down to what twosome gives us the best opportunity to run the ball to our favorite side, which is the left. Because that's what we've had the last couple of years. I mean, look at all the runs that Derrick Henry went that way with Saffold and Taylor. That's the side we favored a lot. So that's why I toss it up sometimes. G. Witt hit it right on the head. This offensive line is built on the identity of the team, which is to run the ball. The problem is we're in a passing league where you still got to pass it. So we've got to be able to protect a little bit. And this is where I go back to what we talked about earlier. You hope that the tight ends help that because it's a lot easier for me to get a tight end open on a quick 3-step drop than Tannehill going back there patting the ball one time and he's on the ground. And so that's gonna be key from that standpoint. Ben Jones again, can't say enough about Big Ben Jones. I mean, he's hurt he's probably hurt right now. Let's just be honest. Season ain't even started yet. He's probably hurt already. But I was so glad. That probably was the most underrated important sign that we had in the offseason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he at least will have that offensive line going one way. And you need that. And I think that helps protect Tannehill more than anything. I'm curious to see Nate Davis. I believe he's coming up in a contract year. Getting very close to it.
Yes,
so
he is.
He's got something he's got to prove this year. He took a step back last year. And he started to turn on a little bit at the end of the season again when you really go look. But we need the Nate from 2 years ago to show up. So he did the opposite. He slimmed down but put on more muscle. He admitted his own faults that he felt like he needed to get a little stronger. But it's that I'm curious to see. These are the battles that I will watch the beginning of the training camp. Because again, I think as a team, you've got to make that decision with your starting five by the second week in the training camp and just let it go and go from there. But yeah, I wanted to say I think the rookie can start, but then I don't know if they'll start the rookie.
Right.
But that to me, that's the wild card between the rookie and Petit and Dylan as far as that right tackle spot.
Yeah, and I just think they still going to bring in another person for right tackle. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be way off. I just got a feeling that we just hadn't seen the last of the additions to this offensive line. And so you look at last season though, guys, 47 sacks that Tannehill took for 327 yards. And so that is a lot, and everybody's always, what happened to Tannehill? What happened to Tannehill? Well, some of those sacks were his fault. Yeah, some of those. Yeah, some of those sacks were his fault.
Yes.
But you go back to the Cardinals game in week 1.
Oh.
Chandler Jones made the Pro Bowl off that one game.
He got his contract. He got a contract off that one game.
Right. He got a new contract with the Raiders, right?
Yes.
And off of that one game, and because after that he really didn't have any. He didn't have too much after that. So 5 sacks in that first game. Of course, Taylor Lewan, as you mentioned, was coming off ACL injury. And, you saw Taylor really pick it up toward the end of the season. He started getting his stride. And so you got a healthy Taylor coming in for camp. You got a healthy Nate Davis. You got guys coming in fresh. And so we'll see. Again, I go back to Todd Downing. He's got a real, his hand, to me, he's the most important piece of this offense this year. Absolutely. Outside of the offensive line, because he's got to be able to, he's got to go to play action, right? He's got to stick to the play action game. He can't run Derrick Henry 500 times a game and expect different results, because everybody knows he's going to get the football, right? Yeah. And so he's got to be able to use those tight ends. He's got to be able to use the receivers that we have effectively, getting them to run precise route trees, getting them to understand blitz concepts, which you run a hot route when your man blitzes that's in front of you, or the linebacker on your side blitzes. And so, things that we didn't see last year out of a Hall of Fame receiver and Julio Jones. Again, that just makes you wonder, man, what happened in that offensive film room every time they were practice to where they were not running hot routes. And you talking about a guy that's a future Hall of Famer, Julio Jones, because him and AJ Brown both. And so again, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, man, you hitting the nail on the head, man, with Todd Downing and everything. There's definitely something missing on the offense. Again, like I said, with Todd Downing, I thought his play calling stunk, but that's neither here nor there. They brought him back, so he's got to get used to that. He's got to start using more play action with Tannehill. It's his best play. It's his bread and butter, to be honest with you. He basically was Pro Bowl material with the play action under Arthur Smith. But going back to this offensive line, man, I get the point where you're talking about they probably might bring somebody in. If they do, I think they're bringing it in for depth, because I think really they want to get this offensive line solidified from day one. And and J. Lou, I think you're right. By the second preseason game, it's going to be set. But I think what they have right now, the wild card is always going to be that left guard. Is it going to be Jones or is it going to be Brewer? And I think we're going to see that early on. And again, the offensive line coaching staff is the one who has to really make this work. And I think that's going to be the key right there. That they can get that continuity with them, especially having somebody, Daniel Munyer, as the backup for Ben Jones. And bringing him
That's
back.
your guy. That's your guy.
I think seriously, just bringing him back and playing at center. Yeah, I think he might work out fine. But you got to have some depth with Ben Jones, man, because he stayed hurt. He played hurt. I mean, if there was an Iron Man award for the team last year, he got it.
He gets it
because I mean, you see him limp off and come and just miss a play and come back in.
Well, and Aaron Brewer can play.
You got to find somebody, and you got to find somebody quick.
Aaron Brewer can play center too, if push comes to shove. Yeah. And so there is some depth there, but I agree with you. They're going to have to find somebody because if he's going to be the left starting guard, him or Jamarco Jones, then we're going to have to have some quality depth behind Ben Jones. And so, but so that's our wrap up of these positions. Very critical positions: offensive line, defensive line. The defensive front, if you will. Stopping people, all these, we talked about it during our schedule review shows, all these quarterbacks in the AFC now, particularly in the AFC West, that you'll have to get by and get through if you're going to make it to the AFC Championship game and eventually to the Super Bowl. Russell Westbrook, Pat Mahomes. You still got now you got I'm losing my folk, Derek Carr. You got all those guys out there, man, and then
Justin Herbert, don't sleep on
Justin
him.
Herbert.
Don't sleep on him at all.
You got Lamar Jackson. You got the Bengals with their young gun out there, Burrow. And so got a lot of guys. I'm still not sold on Zach Wilson just yet. I could be wrong. But
don't sleep on Mac Jones. New England is quietly doing something up there with putting some talent around him. So to your point, it's quarterbacks across the board. Matt Ryan is Matt Ryan, but he's still a potential Hall of Famer.
That's right.
This with us. So it's the defense is going to the defensive. This is the year where the defense is going to really have to bring the offense along. And I mean, getting sacks, getting turnovers, getting us short fields, getting off the field, continue to improve on third down defense. We improved last year, but improve on top of that because I mean it's so many questions surrounding the offense. And again, right now, I think every defensive coordinator that's going against the Titans is already just planning. Let's just stop 22 and make Tannehill beat us because he can't.
That's right.
So how do we combat that? And this is where I think, we talk about Todd Downing. You hope that lightning can strike twice and that Tim Kelly, our passing game coordinator, can have the same effect that Jim Schwartz had last year. It can kind of be in Downing's ear, and you can probably see some wrinkles in the offense. Because to G-Witt's point, we're one of the, because of 22 in the backfield, we're one of the best play action teams that it can be around. Yeah. So we've got to get back to that. And then I really think that Todd Downing has got to find a way to center this offense around his tight end group. And I think that can bring the rest of it along. Because, I mean, we want to be a ball control, time of possession type offense anyway. And even we got a nickel and dime our way, dink and dunk down the field. I think that's what we need to do and have the pop play here and there. But that's what we're going to have to do. And that'll help buy your time with not only the offensive line, but continue to help gel the tight ends and the receivers. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, this offense has got to, on running the ball, got to get that yards per run back up, man, because that was the one thing that did go down last year.
Yes.
So hopefully we'll, and I know we're going to get to it on another show, but man, we can get that running game going on a consistent basis. I think that's going to help everybody out a lot. But I agree with you, Jay Lou. The tight end position is going to be key. I mean, if you got somebody who's going to be a threat to keep a linebacker out of the middle, that they got to always pay attention to, then you're going to see the running game pick up and the play action pass will pick up as well because, again, it forces the defense to adjust and adapt to a lot more threats than what we had last year. I mean, granted, injuries caused us problems, but we didn't have a tight end that scared anybody, and we didn't have a tight end that could make a play. So I think, and you can tell J-Rob, that's the first position he went for.
Yes.
He went straight to tight ends. So, you understand and that they see it as well. So they obviously knew they had to make improvements on that position. So I think that's one of the main things we're going to see improve this year is the tight end position, giving us that threat across the middle, giving us that threat on those short yardage plays, and giving us that bailout for Tannehill when the blitz is coming on. He needs somebody to throw the ball to.
Yeah, and one of the things I hope, and I know J. Lou will agree with this as well, is that you see more three wide packages when they're going to run the ball because you got Austin Hooper who can block and can also run routes and catch the football, and also you can also put the defense at a disadvantage because you bring in the third receiver, they'll bring in a safety, take out a linebacker potentially, right? And so now you got the advantage. You got an Austin Hooper who can run block, like I mentioned, who can also go out and they can still run the football out of that package. Man, hopefully, again, we hope that Todd Downing looks at that and say, hey, man, I can really run the football out of a 3-wide set. And
I want to see that, and I want to see us allow Derrick Henry to run behind a fullback.
Yes.
Many times we see the fullback coming there when Derrick Henry was not in the game. Allow him to have a fullback, not one of these tight end, not Jeff Swain that we bring and put in the fullback position. Yeah, right. Let's let the fullback block and allow Derrick Henry. Those are the two things on the running game that I don't think we did enough. We didn't utilize enough with Derrick Henry to really take advantage of what we have in the backfield.
Right. Just go back, and I hate to keep going back, but just go back to that Bengals game. 3rd and short, 4th and short. First off, you run a read option. Then you come back, you run Derrick Henry up the middle with no fullback. And he gets popped right in the face by the linebacker.
It was an easy read.
Yeah. And so why not?
You got 10 minutes in the box. The linebacker just hit the hole. Like, you're just not coming through here. So, I mean, get him before he gets started. So, Todd Downing, his problem, again, he goes back. He's an analytics guy, man. He's running those percentages. but you got to have a feel for the game, man. And he tries things that he doesn't have to try, and then when he needs to try them, he don't try. You know, it's just back and forth with him. But the one thing I'm hoping we see happen also this coming up season, I'm going back to the defensive side of the ball, is that we end up with a scoring defense. If you got a scoring defense, you are going to win a lot of ball games, man. Because if your defense is giving you 6 points, 9 points a game, you're going to win some football games, man.
Mm-hmm. You would hope so. You would hope so. You got to see what this offense. But to your point, J. Lou, we got a fullback that likes to hit people.
Yes, we do.
And Torrey Carter. So hopefully we'll see more of him in that pack. And I think they do that, man. I don't say that. I think it would be wise. It would be wise because like you said, Derrick Henry, he's coming in 29 this year. He's getting a little long in the tooth. He's coming off an injury year, but he hadn't had the mileage on that a running back in his years in the league has had previously, and so that'll help him. But if you can take the wear and tear off your horse by giving him an extra block, it's like an extra offensive lineman, right, in the backfield that can go out and catch passes, and so why not do that? But
man, and I'm interested to see how that's going to work out because, I mean, we had probably one of the best fullbacks in NFL history playing for us back in the 90s.
And you saw what they did.
And you saw you saw an offense that refused to use them, And that's the thing that gets me about what we see with Todd Downing. It's like it's like they refuse to use a fullback for some reason. And I'm like,
why even have him on the team?
And of course, every offensive coordinator, once you put the fullback in there, everybody knows you're going to run. Of course, they know you're going to run. But that's what you want to do.
Exactly.
And if you're going to run, have an extra block in there. Like you said, Eddie, give your horse some room. Let him be able to get the hole and break through. Because let's be honest about it. Everybody knows it. If Derrick Henry gets to the line of scrimmage, that's automatically 2 yards.
Yep.
Yes.
And see, you really got to go back and think, though. He says, well, everybody thinks we're going to run. Okay. So let's just go back and in history a little bit real quick, and we'll wrap this up. Dallas Cowboys, Moose Johnson, what they run? Out formation. Michael Irvin, Harper, ran the ball, play action, Novacek. Let's go on to the 49ers. Tom Rathman. Come on, man. Fullback. What'd they do? They ran the ball. 2 guys in the backfield. Guess what else they did? They play action with their fullback. And so Jerry Rice out there on it. So, he's a Hall of Fame, but still, my point is you can still throw the football with the fullback in the game. And why not throw play action with a fullback in the game? Because he's right. 95% of the time, the defense is going to be like, oh, they're going to run a football. But guess what? Here we go over the top. Bang. But hey, we appreciate y'all joining us for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Eddie Arnell, G with J. Lou, a position wrap-up show, tight ends, linebackers, offensive line, defensive line. And so, fellas, all we got left is the backfield with the quarterback and the running back, and we'll get that show and talk about those positions. But exciting times, man. 2022 season is right around the corner. Training camp is right around the corner. And hey, it's time for football. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting the show. Eddie Arnell, G with J. Lou. We are Halftime Adjustments, and we are out of here. Peace.